Yeah, that was nice. Hey, I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime streaming show, where sometimes I forget to actually end the show. I basically, because I was working with a thing at the local Alamo with the Found Footage Festival guys, I ended, said goodbye, and then took off and started packing up stuff to set up, and forgot to actually hit the stop button on Restream and OBS. So I apologize for that. Thank you, everybody, for the hey, the stream's still going. It happens. It's so easy, excuse me, to start it that it's so easy to sometimes forget to stop it. So behind me, we watch old 16 millimeter films here, and so I have some films actually set up on the scanner behind me. And so we're going to watch, what is this one? I haven't seen this one. I'm kind of excited. Light Beam Named Ray. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm a light beam. You can call me Ray. Did you know that without me, you would not exist? I come from many different places. The sun and the stars in the universe, from fire, electric light bulbs, and many other sources of electric light. I can come from a candle, or even a match. In fact, it's because of me that you can see everything around you. If I didn't exist, everything would look like this. I can put on great shows, both beautiful and exciting. I work miracles and can make plants grow from the tiniest flower to the tallest tree. I am also faster than anything in the whole universe. I can reach the moon in less than 2 seconds. That's over 186,000 miles in a single second. Nothing is faster than I. At least, I think so. Now that you know how important I am, let me tell you how I work and all the things I can do. What your eyes see are actually many, many light rays, like me, that hit the surface of the object you are looking at and are reflected from it. Then the optical system of your eye forms an image from all the light rays. Reflection means bouncing back the light rays from the object they strike. Particles of dust, droplets of water, smoke can reflect me. On clear nights, the sky is black. There is nothing except the stars. Some surfaces reflect light better than others. The smoother and shinier, the better the surface reflects. A mirror is the best reflector of all. When I hit a surface and it reflects me, I follow a strict rule. It goes like this. The angle at which a light ray strikes a surface is the same as the angle at which it is reflected back. Scientists will say the angle of incidence equals the angle of reflection. I like that. It's easy to remember. Coming and going, I'll always be at the same angle. It's the same thing that happens when you bounce a ball against a wall. If you bounce it straight, it will come right back to you. If you bounce it at an angle, it will bounce, that is, be reflected at the same angle away from the wall. I can also flash messages by reflecting the rays of the sun with a mirror to someone far away. In the old days, before modern methods of signaling were invented, this kind of message flashing was often used. A device called a heliograph reflected the sun's rays, interrupting the reflections to make long and short flashes in code. You know, what you are doing now is a good example of reflected light. That's right, looking at a film. The light from the projector is shining through the film straight at the screen, creating moving forms that are reflected from the screen back to you. Making movies is one of my favorite hobbies. Have you ever noticed that when you look at something in the mirror, the image is reversed? This is fire truck number 7. If you look straight at it, the number 7 reads correctly. Now, when you turn and look at it through the rear view mirror of this rescue truck, the 7 is reversed. The mirror reflects what's in front of it. Right becomes left, and left becomes right. Notice how the distance is reversed, too. You seem to be exactly as far behind the mirror as you really are in front of it. I've already told you that I travel faster than anything in the universe, even though some scientists now say there are things that go faster than light. I also travel in a straight line under most circumstances. However, when I pass from one substance to another of a different density, I change my direction. This is called refraction. You see, when I go through mediums such as water, glass, outer space, or the atmosphere, my speed varies a little. For example, when I travel through water or glass, I am slowed down. Here is a glass of water and a very straight pencil, just like me. Now, watch what happens when the pencil is put into the water at an angle other than 90 degrees. It seems to be broken where it enters the water, doesn't it? It doesn't look straight anymore. Well, that's because the light rays have been refracted. The same thing happens if the pencil is held behind the glass and seen through it. Look how it is broken up when it is moved to different positions. Here is what happens. This is a pane of glass. It will refract the light just as the water did. When a light ray passes through the air to the glass at an angle, it is slowed down and changes direction. When it goes back into the air, it speeds up and changes back again. It has been refracted. The size of the angle determines the amount of direction change or refraction. If the light strikes the glass at a 90-degree angle, it goes straight on through. There is no refraction. To understand why, imagine that instead of a light ray, I am an axle on 2 wheels, rolling along a hard, smooth surface, and coming to a strip of sand. The smooth surface is easy to roll on. It's like going through the air for a light ray. Coming to the sand at an angle, the wheel that hits it first is slowed down. The other wheel, which is still on the hard surface, keeps moving fast and pivots the axle to a new angle. The wheel that entered the sand first is also the first one out. As soon as it hits the hard surface, it begins to move faster, changing the direction to the original angle again. It is important to understand how refraction works. Many things use this principle to operate, such as microscopes, telescopes, eyeglasses, magnifying glasses, binoculars, cameras, and many other instruments. All of them use refraction by means of lenses. A lens is a transparent object that has at least one curved surface. They are usually made of glass, but can also be made of quartz or plastic. Lens surfaces are either concave, that is, sunken in like a cave in the side of a hill, or the opposite of concave, which is called convex. The flat plane on the side of each of these lenses give them the name of plano-convex or plano-concave. Many lenses are double convex or double concave. Most lenses, however, are convex on one side and concave on the other. They are called plus meniscus when they are thicker in the middle and minus meniscus when they are thicker around the edges. I can pass through all of them, of course, but remember, glass refracts me. When light passes through a lens, it follows another rule that goes like this. Light rays passing through a lens always bend toward the thicker part. See how these light rays are bent toward the thicker part in the middle when they go through the double convex lens. They come together or converge on the other side of the lens. This is what a convex lens does. Concentrating beams in a small area makes things very hot. A concave lens, however, is thicker around the edges. This is a double concave lens. Since all the light rays are bent toward the thicker part of the lens, they spread out on the other side. This is called diverging and is the effect of a concave lens. Lenses are commonly used in making eyeglasses. In normal eyes, the light rays enter the eyeball through the cornea and the lens and focus on the retina. Far-sighted people can see well at a distance, but have trouble focusing on close objects. Farsightedness may occur because the distance between the lens and the retina is shorter than normal. The image is blurred because the focal point is behind the retina. The correct convex lens brings the image onto the retina. Nearsighted people have the opposite problem. They can see well up close, but have difficulty focusing at a distance. This may be because the eyeball is relatively too long. The focal point is in front of the retina, again causing blurred vision. A concave lens moves the focal plane back to the retina, thus correcting the eyesight. Another kind of equipment that bends light is called a prism. Prisms refract light just like lenses, but they can do something else as well. You might say they are color producers. Let me explain what that means. Natural light comes from the stars, and the most important star for us, of course, is the sun. It gives us nearly all our natural light. Did someone say, "What about the moon?" Well, the moon like any other reflecting surface, reflects light from the sun. Light also comes from many other sources, such as flashlights, fire, candles, and electric light bulbs. These different forms of light are called white light. White light is really made up of all the colors of the rainbow, which can be separated and produced by a prism so that you can see them. For instance, when a ray of sunlight strikes a prism just right, it is separated into all the colors of the rainbow. Here they are: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. There are many other things that can break up sunlight into colors. You know some of them. Soap bubbles can do it. And of course, drops of water. That's also how a rainbow is formed. Here is a disk spinning rapidly on an axle. What color do you think it is? Looks kind of off-white, doesn't it? Look at that. All the colors of the rainbow. Another example. 3 light beams, red, blue, and green, are projected against this screen. Where they overlap, it looks white. When a prism breaks down white light into all the different colors, this is called dispersion. The visible spectrum is the name of this row of colors shown by the prism. We can say that light is a form of radiant energy that travels in a wave motion. Other forms of radiant energy are radio waves and X-rays. All forms of radiant energy can be measured in wavelengths and frequencies. It's easy to understand what that means if you think of light or other energy traveling in waves, like the ripples on a pond when a stone is thrown into it. The number of waves that pass a certain point in 1 second is the frequency. The distance from the crest of one wave to the crest of the next is the wavelength. The colors in the spectrum have different wavelengths. The longest wavelength that we can see is red. The shortest is violet. This is the visible part of the spectrum. That's me. But I also have invisible neighbors. On my red side are the infrared rays, with wavelengths that are too long to be seen by the human eye. Beyond my violet side are the ultraviolet rays. These are too short to be seen, as are the very, very short X-rays. Infrared and ultraviolet rays, and of course X-rays, are well familiar to us. Infrared light can give heat. We cook with infrared. And ultraviolet light can cause sunburn. X-rays are very important to doctors. They let them actually see through the human body. There is another kind of light beam that is very special. It's called a laser beam. We already know that ordinary white light, such as a flashlight beam, is made up of many different colors, that is, different wavelengths. They travel in all directions independently. Such light is called incoherent light. Laser light, however, is of one wavelength with all the waves traveling in unison in one direction. In this way, they make each other stronger, and the laser beam is a very strong light beam indeed. The laser can produce the most intense light ever seen by man. It is so powerful that aimed against a brick, it can penetrate it in no time at all. It is so sensitive that pinpointed against the eye's retina, it can help perform the most delicate operations. Now you know a lot about me and all my friends and relatives. Didn't I tell you I was important? My job is done for now. I'm sure you'll remember everything I've told you. So, I'm off.
Did anybody get a year on that? I didn't see one. It's interesting. So this is the example of like, well, we could have a scientist lecturing, or we could have like a semi-animated thing, and it's just barely animated. And oh my God, what the most amazingly tedious thing! All right, I got another film for you. This one might be better.
A recent California test of a carefully selected group of women shoppers turned up some very interesting results.
Let me explain quickly what it's all about. As the late President Kennedy once said, if consumers are offered inferior products, if prices are exorbitant, if drugs are unsafe and worthless, if the consumer is unable to choose on an informed basis, then his dollar is wasted, his health and safety may be threatened, and the national interest suffers.
These 5 women, all college graduates and experienced shoppers, were given a list of 14 items used regularly in the average American home. And here's what they were told to do.
We want each of you to select the 14 items on your list, choosing on an informed basis and picking the package which represents to you the greatest value for your money.
These women were in for some big surprises. In the first place, the ladies found that the 14 items were in 246 different packages. Plain white rice alone was packed 14 different ways. Even when shopping with a list, like our ladies, consumers are influenced by many factors. Some are conditioned largely by the price. The specials and bargains attract them like a magnet. Others are swayed by advertising. Few shoppers can resist the pull of a big, brightly colored sign or the word new. But choosing on an informed basis or intelligent buying is finally influenced through reading the label. The label is the manufacturer's method of communicating with the consumer and the consumer's method of evaluating the quality and quantity of the product. If there were no labels, there could be no communication between producer and consumer and absolutely no basis for intelligent choice. But as these ladies found, labels must be not only carefully read, but also clearly understood. Surprisingly, only 36 of the total 70 choices of these 5 women were correct. In other words, the test demonstrated a 50% margin of error. This young shopper avoided one of the most common mistakes of the ladies by carefully comparing the weight and the price. Calculating the weight to price ratio is essential in determining true value. Labeling is governed by the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act and the Fair Packaging and Labeling Act. These laws stipulate that the label must tell the truth about the product. In designing labels, the artist, guided by the manufacturer, must design the labels according to the provisions of these laws. Food labels, for example, must give the common name of the product so you know exactly what it is. Must list the ingredients of all foods which do not have an established standard of identity so you know exactly what it contains. Must state the quantity of contents so you know exactly how much you're getting. And must also give the name and place of business of the manufacturer, packer, or distributor so you know with whom you are dealing. This information protects the consumer's right to know what he's buying. If the product is imitation, the label must clearly say so. The consumer may prefer the imitation product. By reading the label, he should be able to make that choice. Products must not be marketed under misleading or deceptive names. If you were to buy a syrup called Vermont Made, you would naturally think that it was made with syrup from Vermont, the maple syrup capital of the world. This is, but sometimes such a name may merely be a clever cover-up. Further, the listing of the ingredients must not be misleading or deceptive. It should be easy to read without a magnifying glass, and the main ingredients should be listed first, lesser ingredients last. In designing labels, this must always be taken into account. We are more used to saying pork and beans than beans and pork, but the lettering size of this label indicates, as it should, that the product is mostly beans, not pork. Also, the net contents must be stated both in the larger measures of volume and weight and also in the smaller units, as in this label. This would help you to make price-to-weight comparisons and determine value. Drug labels, in addition to the common name, quantity of content, and place of business of manufacturer, packer, or distributor, must also list the active ingredients. Drug labels must also give adequate directions stating how to use them. The directions should also help you answer the important question, should I see a doctor? Many drugs may be harmful if used without a physician's supervision. These can be sold only on a prescription. A prescription is as personal as your name and is based on factors of age, height, weight, and your general health. All prescription drug labels must contain the statement, "Caution, federal law prohibits dispensing without prescription." For the guidance of the physician, the package must contain complete directions and warnings and information about any possible side effects.
When you receive the prescribed medication, it should include simple directions for you. Tell
Federal law now requires labels on hazardous household items, such as cleaners, solvents, pest poisons, and so on. The label must tell users what the hazards or dangers are, how to avoid them, and what to do if accidental injury occurs. Reading this may be worth your life or that of someone else. It is the job of the United States Food and Drug Administration of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare to make certain that products are labeled according to the law. The FDA's work as the power behind the law is our answer of assurance to the question, can I trust the accuracy of the label? To protect the consumer, standards of identity, quality, and fill of container have been established on many foods. This chemist is applying the standard of identity, to these jams and jellies. Through this test, he can determine if these jellies have been boiled down enough to remove excess water, and so conform to the standard for jams and jellies. The standard is intended to define what the consumer expects to receive when selecting the product by its common or usual name as stated on the label. The standard of quality is the second food standard set for a number of canned fruits and vegetables, and establishes specifications for such quality factors as tenderness and color. In this test, for the tenderness of peaches, pressure is applied to the peach in the form of weight through the controlled dripping of mercury at a specified rate. Crushing or penetration is reckoned at the point where the metal plunger sinks through at least 75% of the thickness of the peach. The standard of quality is also applied to the color of certain products through the color wheel. If these tomatoes, for example, had been picked too green, this test would eliminate them. Substandard foods may still be good food with high nutritional value, but the essential idea behind the standard of quality is to ensure that the product is acceptable and pleasing to the consumer, to you. The third kind of food standard is the standard of fill of container. This standard protects the consumer from buying air or water or space at the price of food. And it also protects from overfilling, which, as seen here, can cause damage to the product. But the FDA is not only concerned with the quality of our foods, but also with its safety and sanitation. Intravenous solution is being checked visually for impurities, such as dust, mold, and glass fragments. Another chemist examines a carbonated soft drink. This method of visual examination is known as candling. Sometimes the test is one of smell, not sight. A trained technician can accurately detect shrimp that are just beginning to spoil. Of course, there are other confirming scientific tests for food sanitation. This is one such test designed to detect the impurities that are heavy, such as bits of bone or metal, glass fragments, maggots, and fly eggs. The product is first poured into this separatory funnel, then mixed with gas, shaken thoroughly, diluted with water, shaken again, and then allowed to settle. Every 15 minutes, the sediment is drained off the bottom and prepared for microscopic analysis to determine the possible presence of any impurities. A tiny maggot like this looks like this when magnified 100 times. And so FDA scientists, using modern methods, are policing our food supply. They are also trying to keep up with the amazing recent drug developments, closely and carefully checking the purity and potency of our drugs. The drugs used in these pills have known specified crystal properties or patterns. Under microscopic analysis, pure drugs will conform to these precise patterns. With the aid of this artificial stomach, FDA scientists are able to check the rate of disintegration of various kinds of tablets. Suppose, for example, you took an aspirin to relieve a headache, and it didn't dissolve immediately. It could not bring you fast relief. If, however, it dissolved like this, it could go to work immediately. Other tablets should disintegrate only in the stomach or intestines, where they're intended to work. The rate at which they dissolve is also tested. One tablet tested took 10 hours to dissolve. Some never do. This bacteriologist is checking the sterility of solutions used for injections. Under aseptic conditions, he inoculates the test solution into vials filled with growth media to allow any living bacteria to grow. Of course, if present, viable bacteria will thrive well in the controlled atmosphere of the incubator, and so the bacteriologist places the vials there for a set time and at a set temperature. Later, the samples are extracted and checked for any trace of contamination. Obviously, the first rack contains all clear or good samples. In the second rack, however, there are some contaminated samples, the clouded ones. The percentage of contaminated samples is usually low. The work of the FDA and other federal, state, and local agencies and their enforcement of labeling regulations protects the American consumer from unsafe and unsanitary products. Should such products get through, they may be seized and removed from the market by court order. If they cannot be relabeled or otherwise reconditioned, they may be destroyed. Those responsible for shipment of such goods may be prosecuted criminally. However, the large majority of American food manufacturers are producing the safest, cleanest, and most informatively labeled items ever available to the public. But the individual must still read the label. These directions stipulate clearly, adults, 1 tablet before meals. Yet this young man is taking 2, not 1. No product can ever be used correctly and safely unless you read and heed the label. This young man also disregarded the warning on the label, which states clearly, caution, if drowsiness occurs, do not drive. He should have read the label. Carelessness doesn't pay, it costs. Many items in the average American home are in aerosol cans under pressure, like the hairspray this young lady is using. These cans are so convenient, but where should they be stored? Not in direct sunlight, but as the label directs, keep in cool place. And this inquisitive young investigator must have his counterpart in many American homes. For every year, 500,000 children accidentally swallow drugs and household chemicals, such as polishes, cleaning agents, detergents, and solvents. And 500 of them die, about 300 from aspirin alone. Keep out of reach of children should be interpreted as keep under lock and key. Carelessness costs. Read and heed the label. Remember the logic of the label. Reading and understanding the label will protect you and your family and will make you an intelligent buyer. The label should tell you these things about the product you are buying: what it is and how much there is, what it contains, and with whom you are dealing. Labels of drugs and cosmetics containing drugs must include directions and warnings which should tell you how to use it safely, when not to use it, when to stop using it, and when to see a doctor. Intelligent buying leads to confident buying. Exercise your right of intelligent free choice. Read the label.
Is what you got. Freedom from choice is what you want. That's a wonderful Devo video, which I recommend rewatching. even if you don't like Devo, because it really kind of addresses the issues of choice. And anyways, man, I love that film. I really love that film. And so these were two films that we've never seen, and this is why we like to go to the shelves, pull films. Now, the thing is, you don't know, is I pulled like 3 other films prior to this. I'm like, no, I already showed that. No, I already showed that. No, I already showed that. So I'm trying to do the due diligence to make sure that we haven't seen some of these films before. But man, those were great. Except, I gotta say, the light named Ray, had some potential, but man, it went on way too long. Way too long. All right. And what I also like about those is those are 2 film companies that we don't see a lot of. We see a lot of Encyclopedia Britannica. We see a lot of Coronet, because those were actually projects that were actively working on digitizing their stuff. But things like Affiliated Film Associates, or whatever they were called, or Handle Films. You know, we have films of theirs in our collection, and we just don't always get to them. So thanks for being there for that. Let's go on the farm, circa 1968. Enjoy.
From the top of the hill, Jamie can see the whole countryside. The Whitaker's farm, Eisman's, where his best friend lives, and Ardello's, almost as far away as town.
Jamie! Come on, it's dinner time.
Okay, Dad.
Hi, Evelyn. We're home.
Jamie Barrett wants to be a farmer. He thinks he would like planting seeds in the ground and watching them grow. He likes being outdoors. Most of all, he wants to grow up to be like his father, strong and independent. The farm has been in Jamie's family for more than 70 years. Mr. Barrett's father farmed here, and his grandfather. Now Sarah and Jamie and Neil live here with their mother and father. The farm is a good place to live. There's lots of room to run. Good fishing in the pond. And though friends aren't very close by, animals to play with. But there's work to be done too, for everybody. Neil has a calf to raise, and it's all his own responsibility. The cow does most of the work. Sarah helps with the chickens, or tries to. And even Jamie is able to help his father sometimes. It's important just to hold on to a piece of equipment while it's moved from one part of the farm to another. Work and home life are closely joined on the farm. Like many farmers in this area, Mr. Barrett grows field corn on most of his land. Corn that can be sold as feed for livestock, for cattle and hogs. But all of the farmland is not good for growing corn, and Jamie's father makes use of every foot of his land. On the bottom land, where the creek makes it too damp to work, Mr. Barrett leaves it in pasture for the cattle. Mr. Barrett has planted pine trees on hillsides too steep to work with the tractor. These will keep the soil from washing away in heavy rain, and some can be sold for Christmas trees. The Barrett farm is the same size as most farms in this part of the country, about 250 acres. This would cover a very large area in the city, more than 100 city blocks. But crops need lots of space for growing. Farmers everywhere specialize today, raising mostly just one special crop they can sell, one that grows best in their kind of soil and with the rainfall and other natural conditions they have. In many parts of the South, cotton is the crop farmers grow because the soil, rainfall, and the long growing season there are very good for growing cotton. In California and Florida, it is warm most of the year. This helps make oranges grow well. Some farmers may grow only vegetables, like these string beans. Everywhere, specializing on growing one or two main crops is possible because our country has a good system of transportation. Fast trucks, trains, and airplanes make it possible for farmers to grow what grows best where they are, then send their crops to be sold in different places all over our country. Farmers have always had to work hard. Today they have to know more, too. They cannot afford to guess how fertile their soil is or what crops will grow best in it. To begin with, the soil has to be tested. The farmer gets help from men who work for the federal and state governments. They help him find out what fertilizers and lime the soil needs to remain fertile. Farmers don't have as much of some public services as city people, but they do have other services for their special needs. Mr. Barrett talks with the county agent about insect pests, control of weeds, and other ways to help make his crops and cattle grow well. But the farmer must work with the help of nature, and nature doesn't always give him the kind of weather he needs, sometimes bringing hot, dry weather when the crops need rain badly, sometimes bringing frost when the farmer has counted on warm growing weather. Perhaps the greatest help Jamie's father has in running the farm comes from the machinery he has to work with. The power lines leading to the house mean the Barretts can have electric lights, washing machine, refrigerator, and stove, just like people who live in the city. The telephone brings distant neighbors closer. And TV brings the world to their living room. Jamie's father has become what all farmers today must be, an expert in the care and use of machines. He uses his machines for all sorts of farm work, to prepare soil, to plant and fertilize, to cultivate. All the labor a farmer must do to bring a crop to harvest. "25 years ago, when Jamie's father was a boy on this farm, the help of 8 hired hands and 20 mules was needed to do the same amount of work Mr. Barrett can do today by himself with the help of his machines. And still, on the same land, he is able to grow far more because of improved seeds and fertilizers and better farming practices. Mr. Barrett uses most of his land to grow feed corn, but he doesn't sell his corn crop. Instead, he chooses to feed it to cattle, turning the corn into beef, which can be sold at a higher price. As the cattle grow and fatten, Mr. Barrett must consider how best to profit from his investment of work and money. He follows market reports to learn what price he can expect to get for his cattle, for these prices may change from week to week. He checks over his expenses, the money he has had to spend to buy the cattle, and the cost of growing their feed, of seeds, fertilizer, and equipment. Mr. Barrett must decide when the time is right to sell. A trucking company whose only business is transporting livestock carries his cattle to the market that serves the community. Here, Mr. Barrett can show his cattle to buyers who come to bid on livestock being offered for sale. They discuss the quality of the cattle, the price the buyer wants to pay, and the price the seller hopes to get. Finally, they agree on a price that satisfies both of them. When the Barretts have shopping to do, it means an expedition into town. Once a week, the whole family piles into the car and goes. Though town is some miles away, good roads maintained by the state and county make it a short drive. The rural community in which the Barretts live is made up of many farms like theirs, together with the town that is their trading center. Many people and places important to Mr. Barrett's world are here, like the feed dealer, whom he knows as an old friend from years of trading with him, whose advice he knows to be reliable, and with whom he can discuss new products for farm use. Meanwhile, at the supermarket, Mrs. Barrett and the children shop for food, much of it grown by other farmers in distant parts of the country. As far as Jamie, Sarah, and Neil are concerned, the best place of all to shop is the town drugstore. It's important for Jamie's father to keep up with new changes in farm equipment that could mean better farming and make his work easier. Mr. Barrett often has business at the bank. It takes a great deal of money to buy the cattle and equipment he needs to keep his farm running. He is able to borrow this money from the bank. The banker and other tradespeople in the town, Mr. Barrett as much as he needs them. These needs, shared by the farmers of the area and the people of the town, are what form the community, a life in common with common concerns. When Mr. Barrett meets other farmers in town, there's always something to talk about. New types of seed, changes in equipment, crop prices, and farm problems. Farmers work together in organizations to get needed laws that have to do with their special problems. The farm community has deep roots in our past as a nation, and it continues to endure. Each Sunday after church, the Barretts meet and talk with friends and neighbors whose farms are some distance away. They are gathering as many generations have before them, but their life today is very different from that of the past. Modern times have brought many important changes. Jamie has to travel all the way into town and back every school day, but he and the other children in the farm community now have the same benefits and education the city child has. The farmer has the help of powerful machines. He's been freed from the back-breaking toil of former years. He has some leisure time to enjoy life with his family. He has the help of many people, people who bring telephone service and electric power to his farm, people who build and maintain good roads and highways, people who provide supplies and equipment needed on the farm, people who bring him scientific knowledge and many other services the modern farmer has come to rely upon. Still, in many ways, farm life remains the same as it has always been. To be a farmer means working hard almost all of the time, while being dependent on natural elements, on soil and sun and rain, hoping that while he does everything he knows how to produce a good crop, that nature will help. The farmer must still bear the full responsibility for his work, the success or failure of his crops. But for Jamie, there are no doubts. He still wants to be a farmer, for there are few greater tasks within the reach of man than to make the earth fruitful, to bring forth our daily bread.
fascinating, interesting. Kevin, in the comments, mentioned that he saw the film Life on the Farm last night. He was one of the people I saw with the Found Footage Festival, and that film is kind of a documentary about this odd video that was made by this British farmer that kind of just shows what it's like to be on a farm, and it's kind of kooky, but it's also really, really it really kind of captures kind of the philosophy of what it was to be a farmer in the 80s, and it's very good. So if it's coming to your town, see it. I think it's going to get some theater distribution, and then it's going to go to streaming, but it's called A Life on the Farm. Thanks for tuning in today. Very much appreciate it. I'm going to say, where is it? Vote for the toe tapping tournament. I've gotten many votes from you, but there's, oops, I'm not supposed to show that. Oops, hold on. I'm not supposed to show how many votes everybody got yet. Sorry about that. Let's bring that back. I don't want to sway the vote, but yeah, Keep the Promise versus Jackson Junior High, Barbara Murray. The Gift versus I'm Mad at You. Eat Your Heart Out versus Seeing Through Commercials. Different Kind of Love versus Run for Your Life. And it's really interesting. There are some films that are doing, like, beating the other ones, but then there's kind of this interesting little rally that's taking place. So your voice is very important to this, because I reiterated in hanging out with a very tired and drunk Found Footage Festival that, one, they're going to come down here in the summer, and we're going to do Clown Thanksgiving, but then we're going to compete again. And Joe had proposed, well, maybe we'll do Double or Nothing. And I'm like, no, no, we're not going to do that. So I'm not going to let them get away with that. So anyways, yeah, hopefully they'll come back to Raleigh and do a show. And we'll try to figure out a way to make that happen. They're really funny, hilarious, fun guys. And, you know, we kind of do the same thing. So we often pick each other's brains and copy each other and all that stuff. So, but thanks so much for tuning in today. Very much appreciated. I love your comments, as always. If you like what you saw, you could hit the thumbs up button, the like button. You can subscribe. You can hit the super thanks button, which sends a little bit of cash our way. You can also go to ko-fi.com, which some people don't know. It's coffee.com, but ko-fi.com. So it's like somebody had a great idea, but all of the other domain names were taken up. So you can also go to patreon.com/avgeeks. That's kind of like a subscription-based tip jar. That money goes towards things like buying more film cans, or buying film reels, or paying for shelving. We're going to try to do a project to move a bunch of films from one place which isn't good for films to a place that's better for films, and so that's going to take time, money, and a lot of sweat. So that's going to probably be happening over the next couple of months. Yeah, I hope everybody has a great weekend. I swear I'm going to stop this film, the show, as soon as I hit this button and let it run for just a minute or so. Everybody take care. Bye-bye. And we'll see you on Monday. Take care.